Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I'm Hadro in our Washington, D.C. studio. Thanks for joining us. In this week's show, Time's Up. Live Action's Lila Rose is here with disturbing details about a new docuseries she says proves Planned Parenthood has been covering up child sexual abuse and sex trafficking. The British government says it won't legalize abortion in Northern Ireland, despite mounting pressure. And this.
I just wasn't immersed in the human experience the way I have been since becoming Catholic, and just having that connection to God.
Author Jennifer Fulwiler opens up about how converting to Catholicism has helped her fully live out her dreams and embrace being a mom of 6 kids. But first, we have a special interview with a member of Congress who's hoping to become the next governor of Tennessee. Tennessee Representative Diane Black is a Christian, a nurse, and a mother who has served on Capitol Hill since 2011. During her time, she's been on the House's Select Investigative Panel on Infant Lives, which investigated the abortion industry, and has sponsored and co-sponsored a number of pieces of pro-life legislation. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee and Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List, join us right now in studio. Thank you both for being here.
You're welcome.
Fun to be here.
It's great to be here with you.
Ladies.
This will be a great conversation. Congressman, I want to start with you. You helped lead recently a coalition of House members to tell the Trump administration's HHS department to enact the Protect Life rule, which essentially cuts Planned Parenthood off from Title X funding. We now saw President Donald Trump recently make this official. What do you make of the president's action on this?
I say hooray. You know, this is something that we've been talking about here on the Hill for quite some time. I remember several years ago when we had Cecile Richards before the OGR, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And that was part of my argument with her, is if you would just stop doing abortions, we wouldn't be talking about how you use your Title X funds for family planning. But abortion is not family planning, it is family destruction. Thereby, it does not meet the criteria that Title X was set up to do.
Absolutely. Marjorie, your group, the Susan B. Anthony List, solely exists to elect pro-life members. Congressman here is now running for governor of Tennessee. You have recently endorsed her. Tell us about that endorsement.
No, it is truly an honor to sit here next to Congresswoman Black. I believe her husband says she has the heart of a nurse and the mettle of a Marine when it comes to life, and this is how I have come to know her. There is really no one who matches Diane with that tenderness that she has for the unborn, as a legislator, as a grandmother, as a mother, but then also the tactical skills, the vision, and the execution that a Marine might have, but even better, a legislator. Her foresight and her vision is unmatched among women and men. It's such an honor to be a part of her campaign.
You know, we've come to know you, Congressman, here on Capitol Hill, but Representative Black started off in the Tennessee legislature as a state senator, as a state representative. What stood out to you, Marjorie, from her time there?
To me, it's her vision. I don't want to embarrass you here, but pretend like you're not here for a minute. It's her vision in going after the heart of what's wrong in Tennessee a ways back in their Constitution. They had a protection against pro-life measures. In other words, a constitutional protection for reproductive rights and all that. And she knew that that had to be the first thing to fall before any pro-life protections could come along. So even in the legislature, she went for the gold. She didn't go around the edges and do other things. She went right for the heart of the matter. And eventually, as time went on, she and her husband were successful in overturning that provision. It eventually became an amendment, Amendment 1. They were the king and queen of that of overturning that provision, and now they've been in the legislature getting to the work of turning that all back. And now, as governor, she will be able to enact all the pro-life protections that a woman like she has up her sleeve, and there's a lot.
And Congressman, I do want to speak about that specifically, Amendment 1. It's really interesting in Tennessee because it amends the Tennessee Constitution to read, in part, nothing in the Constitution secures or protects a right to abortion. There was a challenge to the vote count, but that's now been put to rest. So what do you anticipate to come next? Do you see more pro-life legislation coming forward now?
I do. I think my goal is to make us the most pro-life state in the entire union, where we honor that God places that baby in that womb. He knows every hair on their head. And that's really my goal, is to look at what can we do next. When I first came to the state legislature almost 20 years ago, and I knew what our Constitution prohibited us from doing in making sure that women were safe during the time of abortion. And I wanted to be sure that we recognized in our state, which is a very conservative state, that we honored life. And so it took a constitutional amendment to be able to do that in our state. And actually it was Planned Parenthood that challenged our state and caused us to be in the situation we were in, and we had to reverse that. The only way to reverse that was by doing a constitutional amendment, which is very difficult to do in the state of Tennessee. It's a long procedure. It took 14 years in order to make that happen, but you never, ever give up.
And look at now, look at the amendment that's there. Finally, Congressman, I want to end on this question. There are some reports out there that you have voted to support Planned Parenthood. Some reports saying that you voted at least on 8 occasions in favor of Planned Parenthood. What's your response to that?
Well, that's what they tried to do. The opposition will always try to twist things around. But we know that in order, every time I have ever voted for any measure that could defund Planned Parenthood, we have done that. But there are some things in our budget that we have to be able to get the votes for. And so, look, we'll keep on working to take every dollar we can away. I applaud what the president has done in this measure. It's still going to take some time in order to take away all of that funding within the budget, and we'll keep on working until that does happen.
I would just add, Diane is the author of the Defund Planned Parenthood bill in the House of Representatives. No one is better prepared to really get that done than she.
Thank you for that clarification. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee and Marjorie Dannenfelser of the Susan B. Anthony list, thank you both for being here.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
President Donald Trump has recently issued the new Protect Life rule, which stops Title X family planning dollars from going to abortion groups like Planned Parenthood. Once this rule goes into effect, Planned Parenthood will lose up to $60 million of our tax dollars each year. It's their second largest source of tax funding. But here's the deal. Before the Protect Life rule can go into effect, it must undergo a 60-day public comment period. That's where you come in. Listen up for this week's very important call to action. We need you pro-lifers to voice your support for the Protect Life rule. Here's how you can do that. Open up your internet browser and type in ProLifeWeekly.com. At this website, you can flood the Department of Health and Human Services with comments expressing support for President Trump's life-saving new regulation. We've made it easy for you and have already drafted a comment for you to submit. But you can, of course, add your own thoughts and make the comment your own. Once you get to ProLifeWeekly.com, just scroll down and click Submit. Your message will go straight to the HHS department. Let's make our pro-life voice heard now during this comment period. Be sure to submit your comment in support of President Trump's Protect Life rule by going to ProLifeWeekly.com. Turning now to another story, a new Gallup poll released this week reveals attitudes on abortion remain closely divided in the United States. According to the Gallup poll, 48% of polled Americans identify as pro-life, with the same amount identifying as pro-choice. Here's another finding. 43% of Americans say abortion should be legal in all or most cases, while a majority, 53%, say abortion should be legal in only a few or no circumstances. Pro-lifers will gather together in St. Louis, Missouri next weekend for the 3rd annual Pro-Life Women's Conference. One of the organizers is Abby Johnson. The former Planned Parenthood manager turned pro-life advocate tells us about the focus of this year's 3-day conference.
One of the things we're going to be talking about is sort of healing our own hearts, because doing this work, being pro-life, it's tough work. It's hard, and we can suffer from burnout, compassion burnout, and it just gets tiring sometimes.
Johnson says the conference will also have self-care rooms, which will include massage therapists for relaxation and priests
available for confession. And listen up, Johnson is offering a special discount for viewers. If you want to attend next weekend's Pro-Life Women's Conference in St. Louis, go to prolifewomen.com to register and type in this code, Sponsor 2018, to get a significant discount from the registration fee. We go now to pro-life headlines from around the globe.
The United Kingdom Supreme Court throws out a case challenging Northern Ireland's abortion law. The predominantly Catholic nation bans abortion, but has exceptions if the mother's life is at risk or there's risk of permanent serious damage to her health. UK's High Court dismissed the case based on legal standing, but not without the judges criticizing the nation's abortion ban, claiming it violates the European Convention on Human Rights. And good news from Portugal, the Portuguese parliament recently voted to reject legalized euthanasia. 4 laws promoting the legalization of euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide were up for a vote. If the measure passed, it would have decriminalized voluntary euthanasia for terminally ill patients. Local Catholic bishops are praising the parliament's decision to vote against it, 115 to 110. And Argentina's lower Congress debates on whether or not to legalize elective abortions within the first trimester. If the abortion bill passes, the measure would go to the Senate. President Mauricio Macri says he's pro-life, but also says he would not veto the pro-abortion bill. As of the taping of this broadcast, Argentina's final vote was not yet in.
Moving now to a disturbing story, a new docu-series alleges Planned Parenthood has covered up child sexual abuse and sex trafficking at locations across the U.S.
Arizona, 2002, the court found Planned Parenthood negligent for failing to report an abortion performed on a 12-year-old child in foster care who had been sexually abused by her 23-year-old foster brother. Planned Parenthood did not notify Child Protective Services nor the girl's foster parents.
The Aiding Abusers docuseries released by Live Action in late May coincided with their new report, which compiled several court cases, state health department reports, and testimonials from former Planned Parenthood managers and employees that allegedly document Planned Parenthood's history and culture of failing to report abuse. Lila Rose is the founder and president of Live Action. She joins us here in studio. Lila, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Catherine.
So good to have you here. And Lila, in your new report, you are talking about Planned Parenthood's cover-up of sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse. But this has been a topic you've been uncovering for over a decade now. Are we, do you think, at a time in our culture, in our nation, where there's more willingness to listen and hear you out on this information?
Yeah, sometimes it takes 10 years or maybe even more than that to get a message across, but I think it's getting across. My first time undercover was over 10 years ago now, posing as an abuse victim. And in the last 10 years, we've documented court cases, health department reports, ex-Planned Parenthood testimonies of ex-workers, girls' their stories, their testimonies. And that's what this report is the compilation of. It's this incredible body of evidence. And we are seeing feedback and pushback.
And I do want to delve into this report. It compiles, as you mentioned, information from court cases and state health department records. Can you walk us through some of the findings you found the most concerning?
Sure. So of the court cases, one is the story of Denise Fairbanks, and she was taken to a Planned Parenthood as a very young teen by her by a situation of incest, so actual abuse by her father. And Planned Parenthood, instead of reporting the abuse, even though they knew she was underage, there's this older man taking her there, did not report any suspected abuse, sent her back into the arms of her abusers. There's stories of young girls where this happens multiple times, so they're taken by their stepdad or their biological father or an abuser. Planned Parenthood is required by law to report this in virtually all 50 states, but instead they're sent back to their abuser. Sometimes even Planned Parenthood miscoded this situation of abuse as consensual, as if a 13-year-old girl can consent. So horrific systemic abuse cover-up, stories explaining it, and then we have the testimonies of ex-Planned Parenthood workers saying there was a don't ask, don't tell policy at Planned Parenthood. They admit it.
Tell us more about that. You did speak to these former workers at Planned Parenthood. What was a reoccurring theme and their testimony from what they firsthand witnessed at the
They
clinic.
all acknowledge it. So of the 4 different ones that we quote former managers at Planned Parenthood, staffers, they say this was a problem that they saw regularly, where instead of seeing the woman, the young girl, instead of following the law, Planned Parenthood sees an abortion client. And we know Planned Parenthood has had abortion quotas. And instead of reporting abuse, they see a young girl coming in, or a woman who's been sexually trafficked, and they think the best thing for her is abortion. They violate the law. They send her back to her abusers. They have this sick code of confidentiality. So it's incredible to see these brave women post-Planned Parenthood, former workers, share their stories, as well as these brave young victors and survivors of abuse.
Your report, Lila, essentially argues that abortion clinics, namely Planned Parenthood, is a safe haven for sexual predators, sexual traffickers. Can you comment more on that specifically?
Sure. When you think about it this way, abortion enables abuse. When a sexual abuser has impregnated his victim, whether it's a sexually trafficked woman or girl, or a young girl who's the victim of statutory rape, he wants to get rid of that pregnancy as evidence of a crime in his mind. So he's going to try to find a reproductive health clinic that won't ask any questions, that will do a secret abortion and send her right back into the situation of abuse. All of the evidence in this report, undercover investigations, court cases, personal testimonies, ex-Planned Parenthood worker testimonies, a study published by Loyola University, all show the same thing, that abortion enables abuse, and we prop up Planned Parenthood with $500 million taxpayer dollars every year, who is enabling the abuse of these young girls.
So we have all these court records, we have all these testimonies. How has Planned Parenthood been spinning this? How have they responded and reacted to your report?
I mean, so sadly, Catherine, they call the report discredited. I mean, they've basically come out, and this was last week, and they said, oh, this evidence is discredited. These are the stories of girls who have actually sued Planned Parenthood because of the abuse, civilly, for the abuse that they endured. Planned Parenthood, which also claims to stand up for the Me Too women of the world and girls, for the times, they've said Time's Up is a great movement, is extremely hypocritical here, because they're claiming that abuse matters and these stories matter, but they're basically casting aspersion, attempting to discredit the stories of these brave young girls and these ex-Planned Parenthood workers who are standing up for them. So it just goes to show that the priority of Planned Parenthood, tragically, is killing children in the womb. It's not protecting women, and it's completely against the empowerment, the protection, the dignity of women and girls.
Lila, finally, as you mentioned, we are at the height of this Me Too, Time's Up movement. Meanwhile, in the Catholic Church, we are celebrating 50 years since the release of Pope Paul VI's Humanae Vitae, an encyclical which essentially foresaw all of this, all this fallout from the sexual revolution. I'm curious, as a Catholic yourself, as a pro-life leader, how are you thinking through these things? How is this all kind of sitting with you in your mind?
I think as a Catholic, it makes me so grateful for Mother Church. It makes me so grateful for the Holy Spirit guiding the Catholic Church over the last 2,000 years, and the sacraments and the teachings and our faith. We have been entrusted with this gift. Humanae Vitae was this prophetic proclamation to the world about the fruit of contraception, the fruit now of abortion on demand, being abortion on demand today, and all the chaos and the breakdown that has ensued. We need to be prophetically speaking and sharing this truth, and then giving people a vision of the alternative.
Lila Rose, thank you for your work and your time.
Thanks, Catherine.
When we come back,
I still think that what the church teaches is absolutely empowering.
in part 2 of our interview, author Jennifer Fulwiler shares how converting to Catholicism has helped her lead one beautiful dream as wife and mother. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. For this week's Speak Out segment, we're bringing you a story that should be causing women's health advocates to be up in arms, but doesn't seem to be making the news rounds. Tanai Smith is a 25-year-old college student and mother who got an IUD after the birth of her daughter 3 years ago. An IUD, or an intrauterine device, is a T-shaped piece of plastic inserted into a woman's uterus to prevent pregnancy. But as Smith has shared to Cosmopolitan magazine and publicly online, over time her IUD forced its way up into her stomach and migrated to her liver. Smith had to undergo multiple surgeries to remove her ovaries, uterus, and toes. She cannot work for the time being, so Smith has recently started a GoFundMe page to share her story and raise money to cover the cost of living for her and her daughter. This young woman says she got an IUD because her doctor reassured her it's low maintenance, low risk, and highly effective. And while Smith's case may be an extreme example, she's not alone in facing IUD complications. Take Desiree Nicole Lee Johnson, for example, a woman whose IUD perforated her uterus and moved to her abdomen. When it was removed, she became pregnant, but suffered a miscarriage and now may be infertile. Or take Melody Williams, a woman who suffered severe pain and abdominal cramping less than a year after getting her IUD implant. Surgeons later discovered her IUD migrated through the opening of her fallopian tube. There are many stories like this. In fact, Bayer Healthcare Pharmaceuticals, the manufacturer behind the Mirena IUD, has faced thousands of lawsuits. These stories are devastating. To all the women out there, remember, you do not deserve this. You don't have to have a small piece of plastic inserted into your organs. You deserve better than to mess with your precious body like that. And anyone or group who claims to advocate for women's health should be on the forefront speaking out against the dangers of IUDs instead of promoting them, like Planned Parenthood so often does. Remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death. Follow this week's call to action. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com. Submit your comment in support of President Trump's Protect Life rule. A convert from atheism to Catholicism, Jennifer Fulwiler now leads a busy life as a Catholic radio host, homeschooling mother of 6 kids, and author of a new book, One Beautiful Dream. In part 2 of our interview, Jennifer shares how being Catholic helps her embrace natural family planning, and she opens up about how her family lives authentically in today's filtered world.
There's this chapter pretty early on in your book. I think you're pregnant with your 3rd child, and your obstetrician starts to kind of push contraception onto you. Yeah. How do you respond to that?
Oh,
can you give kind of your, what do you say? And then even to go further and share about natural family planning.
Yeah. So I have a blood clotting disorder that is exacerbated by pregnancy. It makes pregnancy high risk for me. And so you can imagine, trying to tell my obstetrician about natural family planning. Right. I mean, they're just, you would think that I'm like practicing witchcraft or something, the way that people think about it. So that has really been a journey for me. And I think one of the things I've had to do is just accept that in the mainstream medical community, it's hard to get acceptance for this, and I will be looked at as the crazy religious nut. But that's something, that I tried to do in the book, is share how I converted on this issue. Obviously, I'd never even heard of natural family planning before I became Catholic, and I really saw contraception as like a basic necessity, like air or water. And so I did share a little bit about that I came to see that what Catholicism believes about artificial contraception, about natural family planning, it is actually a message that is deeply empowering to women. And I say that as someone who needs to avoid pregnancy over the long term because of this clotting disorder. I still think that what the church teaches is absolutely empowering. Is it easy? No, not at all. I will never tell you that it's easy, but it's true and it's good.
Jen, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, how our world is just so filtered. And you look on, moms' Instagrams, for example, and you'll see their kids just perfect and cute in their home that looks like it comes straight out of a magazine. You're not afraid to show the behind the scenes, though, and maybe a tantrum or maybe some dirty dishes. Why do that?
Because I have no other choice, Catherine. To be honest, I might like to be the person who's making it seem like I have my act totally together, but I am such a disaster that I couldn't even keep it up. I wouldn't even know how to tell the right lies. And I realized early on that I think each one of us has a different mission in terms of what we share. Even for people, they might not officially have a public presence, but let's face it, anyone who has a Facebook account, anyone who has an Instagram account, you have a quote unquote public presence. Right. And I think each of us have a different mission. So I have some friends that love beauty and they love, getting a vase of flowers to put in their kitchen. And that's what they feel inspired to share, the beautiful side of life. And that's good, that works for them. And I'm glad they do that. And for me, I just have a different mission. I think that it's just part of the plan for my life, that I'm supposed to share the really messy side of things, the disaster. And it just kind of feels right when I share it.
Jen, in your book, One Beautiful Dream, you mention a number of people who are in your life and who have been wanting to help, but you have been turning them away, thinking you don't want to burden them.
Right.
But you finally said, you know, I am going to let them help.
Yeah.
Why did you ultimately decide that, and how has that been?
Oh, it's been amazing. You know, I did not realize how much, even after I converted to Catholicism, I was still bringing in that secular mentality that says it is virtuous to do everything all on your own and never be a quote unquote burden to anyone. You know, that is not the Christian worldview. And I think it just took getting myself in over my head so many times. And Catherine, I would be saying, Lord, I need help. I'm so overwhelmed. And I would have like 5 people offer to babysit. I would turn them all down out of pride, frankly. And then I'd say, Lord, why aren't you answering my prayers? And I finally clued in, yeah, God was trying to answer my prayers. I was just too prideful to accept the help that he was trying to send me.
You've mentioned your conversion a few times in our interview. You know, you studied and researched and you chose to enter the Catholic Church as an adult. How has being Catholic helped with everything that we're talking about right now? How has that helped? And I'm curious if there's a particular saint that you turn to when it comes to your vocation of motherhood.
Well, yes. So the saint who I turn to very often, who actually inspired the title of this book, is Saint Frances of Rome. Now, she is not as well known. She lived in, I believe it was the 13 or 1400s. And so she always wanted to be a nun. And when she was a young woman, she said, that's the life for me, quiet contemplation. She was very introverted. And she ended up in married life. And she had a spiritual director who, when she was crying, he said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something like, are you crying because God's will isn't being done or because your will isn't being done? And so she ended up throwing herself into the vocation of marriage so beautifully, and so much so that at the end of her husband's life, her husband's name was Lorenzo, he said, my life has been one beautiful dream of purest happiness. God has given me so much in your love. And that is where the title, One Beautiful Dream, comes from, that quote that St. Frances of Rome's husband said to her. So I turn to her very often as an introvert who's easily overwhelmed, who has all of these children. And, you know, the quote that I often say when people ask me about my conversion to Catholicism, I say, sometimes people will say, is your life better now that you're Catholic? And I say, yeah, it is, but I feel like that's the wrong question. I feel like it's not that my life is better or worse now that I'm Catholic. I feel like my life has started now that I'm Catholic. I mean, I just wasn't, I had a great life as an atheist. I was happy. I had a big career. I had a nice house. I mean, I had a good life, but I just wasn't immersed in the human experience the way I have been since becoming Catholic, and just having that connection to God. I honestly just feel like I was not really living before I was Catholic.
Now God has you on this wild adventure that you're sharing with all of us.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
And it's been beautiful. Jennifer Fulwiler, author of One Beautiful Dream. Thanks for stopping by and being with us.
Truly my pleasure, Catherine.
What a joy to speak with Jen. That's it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. You can reach us anytime with questions, ideas, or comments at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. I look forward to seeing you here again next week, and I hope you'll remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.